Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to part 4 of our video series discussing units that need to be buffed in Total War Warhammer 3 multiplayer. So without further ado, let's waste no more time and head on over to the realm of the Dark Elves. So there's two units we're going to be kind of lumping together here. It's going to be Crone Hellebrand's Mount, the Cauldron of Blood, as well as the Bloodrack Shrine, which is the big, expensive 1800 gold chariot with a Medusa on top. So the Bloodrack Shrine was seeing a little bit of play when Medusas had that bugged missile attack where they were hitting super hard, but ever since that was correctly fixed, and now they shoot as they normally do. Though the shooting of the Medusa is still decent, the Bloodrack Shrine and the Cauldron of Blood mounts are extremely mediocre. They do basically no damage, are probably overcosted for what they are, and I do think that they need a good looking over and some adjustments to be a little bit more effective. Because as it currently stands, those units are just incredibly haggard, and usually when you see them, they're in a meme format or somebody kind of messing around, which is a shame because who doesn't want a giant heavy metal shrine with a Medusa shooting laser beams off the top? It is certainly very, very Warhammer. So next up, we're going to be heading on over to the realm of Khorne and talking about the Forsaken of Khorne. So Forsaken of Khorne, you look at them, you're like, oh yeah, these things, you know, they hit hard, they have 58 weapon strength, baseline without frenzy active. But man, paying that price point of 800 gold while they have freaking 15 melee defense is just so haggard. 15 melee defense is like almost like Skaven slave tier, right? And I know they're like a berserker unit, but Khorne units, like, they shouldn't have super low, you know, melee defense. I mean, it should maybe be a little bit lower than something like Nurgle, for example, but they're still martially adept fighters. Although Forsaken, I guess, are like wild mutants. But at the end of the day, these things are just so haggard because of their melee defense. And that's kind of been a bit of an issue I've had with Mark of Khorne in general. I really, really dislike the fact that Mark of Khorne comes with a downside. And even though right now, as it currently stands, like with Khorne having an upcoming DLC, and if you were to remove the melee defense penalty on their entire roster, it could be a little bit problematic as it currently stands. But that you would need to do a kind of a faction-wide adjustment for that. But really, I don't think Mark of Khorne should be lowering your melee defense. And on top of that, Forsaken of Khorne really accentuate that haggardness by sitting at 15 melee defense and just like getting like, sure, they'll wreck a target if they're not the main focus fire, but like if they take any like charge or anything from like a hard-hitting unit, man, they just fold up like a piece of paper. And for 800, that's something that you really don't want to be dealing with. And guess where we're heading next? We're heading over to the realm of the Druchii again, and we're going to be talking about Doomfire Warlocks. Doomfire Warlocks at 1200 are just, I mean, they saw some fringe play in Warhammer 2 for sure when the update came out, and they do magic damage, which is, you know, nice in a couple of the demon matchups. But with only 15 armor, low melee defense, and an obscenely high price point, like, you're paying 1200 for a Doomfire Warlock, right? And if you go over to, let's say, the Sons of Sigmar, you can get a freaking Knight of the Black Rose, which has probably more killing power, more armor, more durability, immune to psychology, a little bit slower, of course, than a Doomfire Warlock, for like the same price point as a Doomfire Warlock, which is obscene. So maybe if you lowered these guys' cost by like 1,000 or not 1,000, yeah, just make them cost 200 gold by 150, maybe like 100, somewhere in that ballpark. You could take a more conservative approach at first, but they definitely need a cost reduction. At 1,200, it is just disgusting. The only time they ever see fringe play now in Warhammer 3 competitive is like as a niche magic damage unit against factions where you might be dealing with like ethereal pieces, right? But yeah, man, 5,000 and 520 HP. And again, if we compare them to a Knight of the Black Rose, for example, it's almost 7,000 HP on that thing. Man, yeah, really, really janky unit. I would love to see them get reworked. Now, we haven't really been doing RORs too much in these videos. I was actually going to do a different type of series discussing RORs, but I'm like, screw it, man. We're here. Let's talk about it. Vampire Coast. I'm talking to you, Gallow Giant. Gallow Giant is kind of a different unit anyways than the Necrofex Colossus, which is probably something that could use a cost reduction itself, but I wouldn't put it on like terrible tier. Although I don't know, maybe it is. You know, I know it's different because land battle, maybe the Colossus is still decent, right? But so let's just focus on the Gallows Giant. Gallows Giant is such a junk unit. It is so bad. Its flamethrower attack, CA has had like some weird code with this thing forever where it only shoots at the edge of the formation. And it is like, this is like some giant, like building sized Colossus with a mega flamethrower. It should be shooting like when a Flamer of Tzeentch unit shoots, like the multi-unit model, it should spray fire like that and just melt a unit. For 2,000, what you're paying for, and for its mediocre melee, dude, its flamethrower is so limp and terrible too. Oh my God, it shoots the corner of the formation. It is just so bad. So I would love to see the Gallows Giant flamethrower reworked. And honestly, that's all it would really take. If you just reworked its flamethrower to be like more like an Exalted Flamer of Tzeentch or Flamers of Tzeentch where it like spread fires, maybe he like moves the flamethrower side to side and like does like a roast of the whole formation. That would be incredibly freaking awesome. So now over to Lustria, we are on the Lizardmen. We're going to be talking about the old Troglodyte. It's funny, that's what it's called, right? Troglodyte? I like forgot its name. I'm like, what the hell is this unit? Where does it come from? Troglodon. See, it's so bad. I just like can't even remember its name. But this thing just sucks. I can't put my finger on it. It just is incredibly mediocre. Like, hybrid units in general are hard to make work. Some factions do it well, like Kislev, right? With their Kossars, they're pretty good at shooting and fighting up close. But the Feral Troglodons are just really, really haggard. And whether it be a cost reduction maybe or reworking their missile attack, I find that it's a little bit too easy to dodge their missile attack. It looks fast, but in competitive play, people just dodge it perpetually. And this thing is just so janky. Like, you would think there'd be one matchup where there'd be like, all right, this is the Feral Troglodon matchup, but there's so many better choices, right? But you know, again, if you buff its missile to be too effective, is it going to be problematic as a sniper piece? You gotta tread carefully with these pieces. But yeah, it's just so bad, and I would love to see the Feral Troglodon get a look over. So now over to Hemry, we're going to be going to the Tomb Kings and talking about one of my favorite pieces, which is not very good, the Tomb Scorpion. So Tomb Scorpions just do absolutely no damage. I have had games where I put a Tomb Scorpion in a unit of like Chaos Warriors, which is what they're designed to counter, right? 400 weapon strength, anti-infantry, and they just do like 0 damage. Like, they sit there, I look back like 4 minutes later, and the Chaos Warriors like at like 60%. I'm like, and the Tomb Scorpion's at like 70, like kind of losing it. Like, what is that? Tomb Scorpion's supposed to be super awesome anti-infantry pieces, but they just don't seem to do any damage. And I don't know if that's something, like, you look at their weapon strength, you're like, okay, well, that looks fine. It must be an animation thing. I don't know what it is. And that's one of the more haggard parts about Total War in general and competitive and multiplayer, is that animations are a big dictator of how effective units are. Yeah, this, I don't know if that's a word, dictator. Well, dictator is, but I don't know if it's used correctly there, but whatever. Discussion for another day. The Tomb Scorpion, it needs a look over. It's just absolutely terrible. So now over to Grand Cathay. Now, this one is maybe more controversial. I've heard mixed opinions. I've had some Cathay mains say they like them and they use them effectively, and I've had some Cathay, players say that they're awful. And I'm more on the side that they're awful, and that's the Jet and the Jade Lions. These things are just so terrible, in my opinion. I know some people like them, but I think they're bad. So I think they're overcosted, and I find that they just don't really do a whole lot. The missile mirror is just super janky, and I guess that's something you're paying for. And over here, the Jade Lion's breath is terrible too. So, maybe like a decent compromise would be to make the Jade Lion breath attack a little bit better. I'm not talking like a dragon breath, but maybe just slightly better. And maybe give it 2 charges or 3 charges of the missile mirror, right? It has 2 right now. So maybe like minor buffs like that. Take 50 gold off these bad boys, and maybe they would see some play. But right now, they're just really bad in my experience. I just find that they lose to everything, and they just get wrecked. So yeah, that's that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. This was part 4 of our video series discussing terrible units. And, I'll dig around, see if there's any more really, there's units that could use some love. Like, we're looking at elite infantry in general, but some elite infantry can be real game changers in some matches, right? So it's hard to give that a blanket statement, but there are some that I almost put on this list, like honorable mentions, Harganeth Executioners, pieces like that. But, Hammerers, there's a lot of stuff that I think could use a look over. Elite infantry in general are in a bit of a weird spot. I find that they just get trounced by magic and get karate chopped. Well, we'll have maybe a separate video talking about elite infantry as their own thing. But that is it for today. I appreciate you all. Thank you for taking this journey, this epic saga of the gods, discussing these bad units. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.